Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience at SmithWeekly, including Paul M., Andy S., Mark R., Mike P., and at Wildcat 2013. We have one returning guest and one new guest of a returning company on the program today. Mr. Rauno Perttu, Chairman and CEO, and Mr. Rob Clark, President, are with us representing Provenance Gold Corp., a gold exploration junior focused on projects in the United States with its core El Dorado project in Oregon, as well as White Rock and Silver Bow exploration projects in Nevada. The company is listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol PAU, as well as on the US OTC markets under the symbol PVGDF. Rauno, Rob, welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions.
Glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this discussion because a lot of things have happened in the past year.
Thanks, Andrew. We're excited to be on, and thanks for having us on.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program. It's good to have Rob come on for the first time, and of course, Rauno return to the program to update on the company. Rauno, why don't we kick it off with you first, and of course, we'll jump into the company in a moment. But I'd like to get your thoughts on the gold market here today, as well as sentiment for the junior exploration sector, and how you see the market going into 2025.
Well, I am delighted to be able to say that the gold market, I think, has been strengthening for the past several months, and I think it's going to continue to strengthen. We've weathered a very, very difficult time for junior gold companies, despite the high gold price. And we have survived that, and now we are in the middle of a major expansion on our project. And I am looking forward to having this company really have a fantastic year coming up. I think the gold market right now is just at the beginning of a strong move for junior gold companies coming up in the next, hopefully, several years.
Rauno, thank you for that. And Rob, anything you'd like to add to how you're seeing the market here as well as sentiment?
Yeah, I think sentiment's improved quite dramatically over the last few months, and I see that continuing to strengthen and improve with factors such as interest rates coming down, sort of inflationary policies, both sides of the border. Just more strength coming into the juniors with the price of gold and people sort of finally realizing that it's here to stay at higher valuations. So optimistic at the short, medium, and long term views in gold over the next kind of 18 to 24 months.
Rob, and you are new to the program. Just as customary here with a new guest, we'd like to have you just tell the audience a little bit about your background and experience in the junior sector, and then also how you came into Provenance Gold.
My experience is sort of boutique venture cap. I've done a lot of private and public equity deals over the years in the markets. Several smaller deals in terms of selling mineral assets in Canada and the US. And I founded Provenance 7 years ago and took it public on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So October was our 7-year mark on the exchange. So I kind of handle all aspects of the corporate side of the business and work with Rauno and the other technical team as well for the geological components, but primarily the day-to-day operations, fundraising, talking to shareholders and structuring some of the deals is my forte.
Appreciate the background there and adding some of the things that you're doing in this sector and your focus here on this company. Rauno, the company has ongoing exploration work at the El Dorado project. Talk about the work that's ongoing presently, as well as there has been a number of news events on the project specifically over the past few months. Talk about that as well.
Well, I'll start first by mentioning that last year, since our last broadcast, we drilled 11 RC holes that were very, very enlightening on the El Dorado project. This year, we have finished 2 core holes and are in the middle of our 3rd core hole right now. The core holes were based on the information we gathered from our RC program last year. And it's been a very exciting series of developing steps as we've, first of all, learned a lot from our first program, learned a lot from our first core hole, and are now also expanding currently because we have done a much better detailed surface map of the property. We've done an IP, that means a geophysics survey of the property, and we see one other factor that I need to mention is the area of the project was involved in a range fire last summer. It burned off all the sagebrush. So basically the ground now, it's in a desert environment. It is dirt and ashes. And that may sound terrible, but for exploration geology, it's been wonderful because we are seeing new zones of mineralization and new targets and confirming a lot of our geological theory.
Talk specifically as well about some of the results that have come through so far that you guys have been able to release to the market. There's been some very interesting drill results coming out, visible gold in some of the core. Just talk about that.
On our RC program last year, because we haven't talked about that on your program, we drilled that program to confirm 242 historic holes. Those historic holes we had to locate, which was a struggle, but we located them accurately. We have them all in computer models. They're called leapfrog models right now for location, and we are putting together a very coherent geologic story. Well, what was really interesting about our RC program last year, which was aimed at geological understanding, that was the purpose for that program. Our hole 4 hit 32 meters of 4 grams at the bottom, and it ended in 4 grams at the bottom. This was a complete surprise. It was unknown before that there was this kind of a zone down there. Then about 200 to 250 meters toward the east of that, we drilled an angle hole across an outcrop that is the only real outcrop on the entire property. This outcrop is not a natural outcrop. It was created by placer miners in the 1870s, who then found that they were getting recovered gold in their placer operations right into the diorite bedrock. So they ran mining operation into the bedrock, probably 40, 50 feet deep, impressively. They exposed the wall rock, which is mineralized, which is why the drilling happened where it happened on the property. Now, the historic drilling was focused because of that outcrop in an area that may not be the best target on the property, but it's certainly a great one. We also then came in and drilled to confirm the historic 242 holes by putting, first of all, an angle hole 7 on the property, that's RC7, to try to find out how thick this zone of mineralization that's exposed in the bedrock that was created by the placer miners truly is. We've determined that the grain of the mineralization is in a northeast trend, so we angled the hole toward the northwest to crosscut. The hole from top to bottom ended up averaging over 3 grams and bottomed in strong mineralization. So we never determined the wall rock, but we certainly have an impressive hole. That hole actually went to 114 meters before it ran into slow drilling because of groundwater that we were encountering. And so we decided that it would be better to come back in with a core hole later to answer the questions that we had. Then later in that program, we drilled hole 11. Hole 11 was designed as a vertical hole near hole 7 to see how deep this high-grade mineralization extended. And on hole 11, we went down to 120 meters. That one bottomed in strong mineralization, so we don't know how deep the mineralization went. what we now have, last year at the end of that program was a newly discovered major 3 gram per ton plus zone that extended considerably across a structure and considered to depth over 100 meters, 120 meters. So the first core hole that we put in this year was to try to follow up on how thick is this? What does it look like? We were originally speculating that the reason for this high-grade mineralization would be that it must be some kind of a volcanic breccia pipe or diatreme and confined to that. It's not. What we found out in our core hole is, first of all, that the gold mineralization is scattered throughout the diorite body in an unusual situation that I have never experienced in all of the hundreds of projects I've looked at over the years. I've never experienced this kind of a setting. It's a very good setting for expanding the mineralization and making it something truly unique. Anyway, that core hole that we put in had visible gold in several locations in it. And the one that I really am happy to report is that when we were speculating on why we had the groundwater that stopped our holes 7, 11, and 4 last year, we were speculating that the groundwater that forced a slowdown in our drilling to the point where we had to stop was due to a structure. Well, the structure is real. That structure was hit by the core hole. And from, I'm switching over to feet because that's what we're using down here. From about 500 feet to 550 feet, we had visible gold scattered throughout the core. And that is the zone that we were looking for. That hole continued on down all the way to 347 meters, 1,140 feet. And the mineralization continued to the bottom of the hole. We think that we are going to come back with a rather spectacular core hole that we will be putting out news on when we get the assays back and digest them. But following that first core hole, our second core hole that we put in this year was designed to figure out why the last year's hole 4 had 32 meters of 4 grams and bottomed in 4 grams. We drilled that hole, went through the zone that we, into the zone that we think is our target 4 gram zone. But we lost the hole in a fault because the drilling conditions actually prevented us from going deeper. We lost our core barrel, so we had to re-drill. We are drilling hole 3 now because we wanted to find out how big, what's the nature of this zone. We have crossed that zone and we are waiting for assay results. We are logging it as we speak right now. We believe now we have at least 2 major zones of high-grade gold that we have hit with our drilling. Our geology mapping suggests that there are additional high-grade zones, possibly as stronger than our original target area that we've been drilling. And the only reason they haven't been followed up on before this is simply the fact that there was no outcrop to guide geologists to look there. So it's a really exciting time. We have a major gold system. It has multiple zones, we believe, of high grade, and it's completely open. And if you remember last year, we mentioned that an old report by ICANN suggested that there were 2 million ounces of 0.76 grams per ton within that historically drilled area. We have now confirmed that their drilling was probably, if anything, low in grade because our RC holes in the same area showed higher grades, and also we carried the mineralization deeper. So the system that was a non-compliant by 43101 standards resource is actually wide open, and it's going to continue to grow for a very long time, both locally because we're going deeper, we're infilling, and also on step out, and also in new zones that we have identified that are looking very, very attractive.
Rauno, thank you for that. That's some good information, good update here. Rob, I'd like to have you just add any comments that you wanted to add on there, and then I'll have a few follow-ups.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Andrew. I would just like to say 2 things just for reference to what Rauno was saying. One, the majority of the historical holes averaged 90 meters in depth. So that means that the majority of the holes were very shallow. So that's very encouraging for what we're doing now. And of course, the core drilling that we can go much, much deeper. And even last year's RC program on our behalf, the holes went down as deep as 140 meters. So that's that's a pretty important point to add to that, as well as the 240 plus historical holes drilled were in, as Rauno suggests, a pretty small area of the property. So that's because, you know, they were finding gold and following the old prospectors and whatnot. But this property has immense room to grow in all directions, as Rauno pointed out, and there are some targets that we believe could be even better than where we're initially drilling and where the majority of the historical holes were drilled. So a lot of this property remains untested. So that's a really important point to hammer home as well.
And I want to talk a little bit more on El Dorado just in a moment, but I think this is probably a good time to come into capital structure of the company for a moment and then talk about future plans, follow up in 2025 to continue to test some of those holes that ended in mineralization, as well as do a little bit of maverick work as well on the project and see what else is there. Rob, with that, the company completed a financing during October. Give us an update on the capital structure as far as the shares outstanding at this point, post-financing, the cash on hand, and how far you think that will carry the company going forward here, and then as well, key shareholders on the roster, including you and Rauno.
We have 127 million shares currently outstanding. We did close on a final tranche of our financing, which was 1.4 million. We have about 1.3 million currently in cash and are sitting at about a $24 million market cap. And we currently have 68 million warrants. Most of these warrants are in the money. However, a large majority of these are placed with high net and strategic investors. We've really tried to fund through close associates, strategic investors, mainly people that see the vision and want to be a part of it, that can potentially see this go into development or potentially get bought out down the road. So we have a strong and loyal, supportive shareholder base, and we feel the warrants are going to come in very handy for cash requirements as we go. Management insiders own approximately 8% of the company.
Rob, can you expand a little bit on what's happened with our share price to reflect what's happening on the ground?
That's a good point, Rauno. I mean, I think that the market's picking up, and with some of the juniors starting to get a little bit of tension, some of the juniors that really were able to work through and press on through the tougher times in the last 2-3 years, are doing quite well. So we were able to put raise money through that time, put a lot of the majority of the money into the ground, and because of our efforts last year, we had something really of substance when these markets started to turn. So I think as we continue to get the results out and expand the project, there's a lot of blue sky here, but we're definitely on the right track, and we really were proud of the fact that we were able to kind of work and raise money through the downturn in the junior space, and that's really helped us today to have something of substance for investors to start to take a closer look at.
If I can add to that, one of the big changes we've had from last year to this year is last year when we turned out those great results in our RC program, there was no activity whatsoever as far as investor excitement. That's because nobody even knew of us. This year we have been expanding our visuality. I think that's a good term to use here. We now are on a lot of people's radars internationally, and we are getting a much stronger response on anything that we put out than we did a year ago. I think that's just the beginning. The reason they're doing that is we have an exciting project here that I think is as good as any junior anywhere in the world has right now, and it's wide open.
Rauno, thank you for that. And Rob, thanks for your comments on this as well. And the company has gotten more attention, and we've seen that reflected in the market cap of the company here so far. And of course, there's more speculation on unanswered questions yet to come that you guys will be working on. Rob, with that, given the cash position and the expenditures anticipated on expiration in the near term, do you expect to potentially raise equity during the first quarter of 2025 to continue to test additionally on the project? What's your thoughts on just the potential for an equity financing in the future, or do you think the warrants will cover off the immediate needs?
We definitely expect between now and the first quarter of the year here coming up to do another equity raise. Obviously, in a perfect world, it would be at a higher valuation. We're looking for the right investors and the right strategic investor, and we've received a lot of interest. And you know, the only way to really create substantial value for this project is to drill and drill it out substantially. So you know, we want to raise a considerable amount of money so that we can have a rig going almost round the clock on the property. I think that's really what's needed to really open it up. So we will definitely be looking at doing a larger raise, but you know, we're mindful of dilution and mindful of doing it with the right group at the right time.
Rob, thank you for that. Rauno, talk about what you would expect to have on results coming out of the remainder of the exploration program, when the market can expect more news, and then based on what we've seen so far and some of the progress you guys have made there in the field, just talk about the plans there as far as continued follow-up timing. Would you work through the winter months? We're going into the winter here now. Tell us a little bit about that.
First of all, I think we are going to take a field break on our drilling program over the winter for a few months, and that's as much to do with wanting to digest the information that we are getting from this coring program to date, and also to plan a really expanded program of RC drilling on our new targets and infill on our targets that we have already identified. So our situation with the lab on assaying from hole 1, for instance, is an unknown commodity. We expected to have results back by now. Now we're hoping we can get results before the end of November. They are the only game in town for cutting our core, because we're doing core, and then processing half of that core for assaying. When we get the assay results from the head assay results from the half that they're processing, we will put out a news release on that. We then expect to take that material that is remainder, which is going to be the bulk of that processed half, and send it down to Dawson Metallurgical. Dawson Metallurgical is going to do bulk assaying on it. The reason that that's important is from personal experience and from what we saw in our RC program last year. We got great results on the head assays. We got much better results on bulk assaying, which is typical where you have free gold. We have free gold in this system, and that's the point, by the way, that we haven't brought up here today. Testing last year confirmed the historic testing, which showed, and not only is this a very strong gold system, it has fantastic recovery characteristics. We now understand from our coring why those fantastic recoveries occur. The reason is that the gold came in last. It came in as a low temperature event. It's not associated directly with the diorite body, which is the normal assumption a geologist would make. It probably came in at a much lower or later date at a low temperature, and it used the diorite as a host for that gold mineralization. And that's a very important point, because not only does that expand the target area, as we're seeing, which is structurally controlled by the lower temperature water that brought the gold in, but it also opens us up to much better recoveries, because the gold came in last. So it's not going to be locked up in sulfides. It's not going to be locked up in quartz of any kind. It's exposed on the surface. We visually see it in the core hole. And we know that the placer miners were able to get it from their placer operations right into the bedrock. This means we have a gold system. To summarize, we have a gold system that has gold that can be recovered very, very well. It can be recovered from our testing that we did last year by a simple process of gravity on the front end, followed by flotation on the back end. And if people don't understand what flotation is, it's a very simple process where basically you bubble soap bubbles to make a simple picture on that. You have a soap bubble froth that goes through the ground up material. The sulfides and gold are attached to they attach themselves to the surface of the bubbles. They are skimmed off the top of a vat. All the reject rock goes out the bottom and disappears. So what we have is a system that has excellent recoveries. We don't have a sulfide oxide boundary problem like they do on most of the Nevada mines, and it's open to excellent recoveries. I just get excited when I talk about it because we have a great expanding high grade deposit, much better grades than we have in most Nevada operations or anywhere in the world for open pits. And at the same time, we have recovery characteristics that are off the charts good.
One follow-up there. How do you see the project? I mean, you know this area, you know this region. I mean, it's obviously very close to Nevada as well, which is a very good jurisdiction for mining operations. But when you look at the mineralization that you're seeing there at El Dorado, give the audience a context. Is there any comparable project that you would relate to, say, in Nevada for maybe a closest example, or maybe a historic operation in recent memory that you can compare nearby? Just as far as so the audience can get an idea of, deposit type, maybe a little bit of flavor on scale. I mean, I know this is very early, but also we have a good indication in Nevada and elsewhere in that region, Idaho, et cetera, what kind of scale would potentially attract a mid-tier or a major. But just talk about the mineralization, and if you have maybe a comparable that we can relate to.
That's a question that I've been asked before, and it's a really tough one to answer because there are all the standard type models that you can use. This one is different. It has the gold mineralization coming in after the diorite, so you don't use any of the diorite models that you normally use. You have a situation where you, as I just mentioned, you have not only the gold coming in late, it's not going to be inconvenienced by being encapsulated in anything. As far as type, there is no type I can point to directly. And I've asked this question of a half a dozen experienced geologists. Nobody else can come up with, we have a unique model here, which I like unique models because unique models also can point to some very special things moving forward. But going back to the Nevada analogy, I think what we have here is a deposit that is going to bloom into a series of new discoveries in this part of Oregon, just like when you had, for instance, Newmont coming in to their first discoveries in Nevada, and they thought they had mined it out after their first million ounces, whatever they produced. And today, those million ounces have turned into tens of millions of ounces, and they've become districts and trends. I think this is going to become a district with trends, and it's the beginning of, I think, a major growth in discovery in that area. There was one other mine in this area that has went through all the ropes in Oregon, and that was Paramount's Grassy Mountain project, which is only about 30-40 miles away in a straight line. And Oregon was a terrible place to work a few years ago. And everybody avoided it like the plague. It became a group mantra: "Don't work in Oregon." What's changed is I had an Oregon regulator call me back a couple of years ago and say, "Why aren't you in Oregon?" And I said, "You can't do business there." And he said, "It's changed in Eastern Oregon, and not in Western Oregon, in Eastern Oregon." And that has been confirmed. As an example, Paramount Gold's project is having their final development permits written up right now, and they will be able to break ground next year. The reason that this has happened is the government of Oregon has recognized that Eastern Oregon is an impoverished area compared to Western Oregon, and there are a few sources of revenue other than cattle grazing. Then makes them look at Nevada and Idaho across the state lines in two directions, where they see very prosperous communities that are based on gold mining. So they determined that properly run and properly developed gold mines are a good thing for Eastern Oregon. That's a major advance. Right now, I think we are at the forefront of that discovery because everybody, myself included, was avoiding the state like the plague. By the way, one of the neat things to show how different Oregon is today in their viewpoint is they hired a new state geologist who's in charge of their regulatory agency, Dogami. He's from industry. He apologized to me for how long it took us to permit our original exploration holes, and they have streamlined that. They hired two geologists to work on the permitting process, also from industry. Now that process is smoothing out, and he promises it'll continue to smooth out as we go forward. So we are the second company and possibly the best lead company right now because of the quality of our project to open the door for Eastern Oregon to become a gold province.
Rauno, I appreciate the comments on that, and positive to hear about Oregon. As all of us know on this call, Oregon is a terribly challenged jurisdiction with respect to mining, but it's good to see some of these comments open up and some of the success continue here in Eastern Oregon anyway. Rob, just any additional comments to add on here?
Yeah, no, I think Rauno covered it well. I think, yeah, it's really exciting. That landscape is changing very, very quickly. And even in terms of permitting and whatnot, our first permit took the better part of a year. And, now permits are taking weeks to receive for exploration permits. So, the whole landscape is changing, which is perfect for us. We're coming in at a great time, and it's an extremely exciting project. I will add, I guess, to your point on the winter. I mean, it won't be much of a winter for our company. We've got results will trickle in until December. We've got some more field work and reports and whatnot from this past several months that we'll be reporting on early in the year. Of course, we likely will do a strategic financing at some point, and then we'll be ramping up for our very expanded drill program in the spring. So there won't be much downtime, and there'll be a lot of news flow. So it should be exciting and engaging ongoing here, which is fantastic.
Guys, I want to come back to the community and just talk a little bit about community and state government, in addition to what Rauno said in just a moment. But Rauno, any updates? I want to move over to White Rock and Silver Bow in Nevada. Any updates or any near-term plans with respect to these projects? I understand that you guys want to keep these in the portfolio, but obviously El Dorado is the core focus. But just talk about any potential plans in the near term with the projects in Nevada.
Okay, well, first of all, White Rock, we have now made our final payment and we own it, which is a nice position to be in. White Rock had 100 holes drilled in it, 35 by us. We haven't drilled it the past couple of years for the simple reason that we've been putting all our money during these tight times for juniors into El Dorado, because it's a special project. But White Rock, I think, is going to become another large gold discovery in Nevada, as typical of the ones that are being produced right now. It's wide open. Because we're focusing our resources and efforts on El Dorado, we are open to joint venturing in the proper joint venture on White Rock to get that moving at a faster pace. To streamline for the best benefit of the company over the next couple of years, it may be better to joint venture with the proper person or the company under the proper terms to have both projects moving forward at the same time. As far as Silver Bow, that's on hold right now because it doesn't have any of the drilling history that we have on the other two projects. It's a personal favorite of mine. I think it's going to become a very interesting property for exploration when we have time and money to tackle it. And that means that our efforts are going to continue on El Dorado right now. But they are both exceptional Nevada projects, the other two, and we are open to discussions on White Rock to get that thing moving at a faster pace.
Rauno, before we finish with the White Rock, do you want to just explain a little bit more in terms of where we drilled and the targets that could still lie ahead on White Rock? I think it's important for the audience to know that as well.
Okay, good point. Our 35 holes at White Rock were designed to follow up on the historic holes from before. It's an area that is very a good analogy to Liberty Gold's Black Pine mine, which in a straight line is 40 or 50 miles away in Idaho. That property is turned into a substantial new discovery, but this property is, I don't want to bore people with geology, but this is in the same rock units as Black Pine. It's in the same structural development as Black Pine. And the main difference is that they had advanced drilling way ahead of what has happened so far at White Rock. Our drilling program at White Rock identified a significant mineral system on a dome, which is sort of like the back of a turtle, that kind of a structure. And but one of the key points when anybody looks at it that you have to recognize is our drilling was frustrated by having to go into open fractures on the top of that turtle, that dome. We had to stop most of our drilling at the beginning of the gold system or in the gold system before we could get through it. We had to do geological modeling to show that we have a good 100-meter zone of strong gold mineralization there that is completely open. The drilling did not do it justice because, as I said, we didn't get through the system in many of our holes. But our modeling shows that it's a big system. New drilling techniques since we drilled that program will allow us to drill through the problems that we had then and have much better successful drilling program on that property. So it's open beyond that dome that I was talking about, right through a hill that they call White Rock Mountain, and out the other side, based on historic work and our groundwork. It's completely open to the southwest and southeast from our drilling area, because before the season closed us down, we never reached our primary target areas to the southeast and southwest, where the best surface assays historically had come from. Our results, though impressive, I think are the beginning of that system's discovery. We also think we found one of the feeder structures on that dome in our almost last drill hole, and that needs to be followed up on. It's a very promising property that will continue to grow with the proper drilling.
Rauno, thank you for that. I appreciate the comments there. And it sounds like you guys have some additional work to be done over here when time allows, capital allows, of course, after you guys maybe get caught up or slow down just a little bit on El Dorado work and you have additional capital to be able to advance both of these together. Just with local community work, guys, just talk about the progression of the relations with local residents in Malheur County in Oregon, local community education there, and of course involvement. And then Rauno spoke to this just briefly, just state government relations to advance El Dorado forward. Obviously, you guys are having success on getting exploration permitting going, and hopefully we'll start to see the makings of a deposit here of some size. But just talk a little bit about that local community work, and as well as keeping those relations with the state government in check.
Sure. First of all, with the state government, we have made friends with the regulators, and They needed a comfort level that we're the real deal. We do things by the book, and now that they have that comfort, we have a cordial relationship. I think that will continue to improve, and the addition of their experienced people from industry is going to help. And as an aside, one of their experienced people from industry I happen to know because I dealt with him in a very good manner when he was working for another company in Montana. He is a good geologist, and that kind of relationship where you knew him before and he can vouch to his fellow workers in Dogami that yes, we are the real deal, we know what we're doing, has opened the door to a good relationship. On the local level, we placed on our staff as an advisor Andy Bentz. He is a local businessman at Malheur County. His brother is a key political figure in state government. And he not only is helping us a lot, he helped Paramount Gold. He was very helpful in their dealings with the state. He assures me that the local community is very strongly supportive of the high-paying jobs that come with the mine. In Nevada, just as an aside here, the biggest employer in Nevada is the casino industry. They normally pay minimum wages. The mining industry is the second biggest employer in Nevada. They pay something on the order of twice the average salary because they're high-paying jobs. And that means that the cities like Elko, as an example, are prosperous because of the mining industry. When you have a mining industry job come in, you have many, up to 14 satellite jobs that come with that to support them in the people that are working directly with the mining company. So it's not just the number of people that are working in the mine or around the mine that are important. It's those plus 10 people that are support have all the jobs that provide the services for the miners and their families. We are in a situation right now where I would guess that if it ever came to it, we could get incredible vocal support for anything that we're doing that will benefit these people economically. It's an economically depressed area.
It's a big deal, and mining offers so much more as far as indirect job add as a result of a mining project coming online and being successful. So I appreciate your comments on how you guys are approaching this, and just a little bit of efforts you guys could do as a small junior still. Obviously, those efforts ramp up in due course as the company gets bigger and continues to advance the project. But I appreciate, as always, anybody's efforts to help educate local community, utilize local community, and have them understand really the importance of mining and how important mining is as a cornerstone for everything that we do in our daily lives. So I appreciate the comments there. Rob,
Yeah.
with that, any comments you'd like to add there? But I also would like to have you touch on this regarding now with your guys' progress on the ground. Talk a little bit about overall awareness activities to get more word out about this company to the market, and speak to what the plans might be if that's going to be an effort of yours in the coming months.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you. Will add just one other tidbit to the local support. We do also have a letter of support from the Malheur County Economic Development Director showing support for local mining in the area. So we're planning our routes well, and we've got some great support at all levels down there. So it's encouraging. They're supportive. These are extremely important factors in the long-term success of this project. As we know, you can have the best project in the world, but if no one knows about it, it's it's going to be quite quiet. So with the results and what we've done to date, moving forward into next year, I mean, we've got a lot planned in terms of market awareness, but we're planning for the future. So, all our connections and strategies revolve around, people that understand not only the short term, but the medium and long term potential of the project and the scope of it. So as Rauno alluded to earlier in the conversation, we've done an incredible job of getting a larger reach in all areas in Europe, Eastern Canada, all through the U.S., and we'll continue to, be front and center, getting our word out, talking to strategic advisors, investors. We definitely understand that's a critical component of the company, and we've got a lot planned, and we've come a long way in terms of our shareholder and investor reach. So we're growing and continuing to expand and develop that portion of the company all the time.
Well, guys, I'd like to go ahead and leave it there for now. And thanks again for the time. I do want to leave you with a couple final wrap-up questions as customary here. For potential investors who are listening
Sure.
in, company has a market capitalization of about 24 million Canadian dollars at this point. Why should Provenance Gold be considered within the institutional, family office, and retail investors portfolio at this stage? Rauno, why don't you start with that?
Well, I think that the obvious answer to that is yes, we have started getting some response and recognition right now, but I think we are at the very beginning of that process. As we continue expanding this property, we're going to have some spectacular results. It's a process, it's not an event. And we will, I think, start growing this company and its value methodically, probably with some major jumps as when we announce what we have in these holes right now. But anyway, it's a great investment because eventually this company will be valued on the gold in the ground rather than as an exploration target company. And that evaluation is way higher than what our current exploration value is right now. It's a long-term hold for anybody that wants to be part of something that's going to, even if we are absorbed by a major at some point, be a growth company for a very long time, because our resource is going to continue to grow for a very long time.
Rob, anything you'd like to add to that?
Sure. Well said, Rauno. I mean, in my view, we've barely scratched the surface here. We're still extremely undervalued in my belief. This project has so much expansion potential. We're almost just out of the starting gate on where this can go. So it'll be exciting, extremely rewarding in our view as things continue to expand and develop, and as we get more and more rigs and more drilling on the property completed, and identify some of those other areas that could be as good or better than the historic and current target areas that we're drilling today.
And Rob, what is the best way for folks to reach out to the company?
On our website, we've got the contact info. You can reach us directly through there. Rauno and I are always happy to talk to anybody, so feel free to email and call. We pride ourselves in quick responses, and happy to discuss the project at any time with anyone.
And to that point, if I can add, one of the most frustrating things I have is when I'm trying to contact somebody from a company to ask them questions or do whatever. It's impossible. You never get to that person. You get to their surrogate office somewhere else. It's a miserable experience. With us, if you call, you'll get us on the phone, and we will give you a solid answer, as much as we're allowed to give you at the time. So we have a very different philosophy on this. If you're interested or are an investor, you're part of the team, and we will respond to you immediately. We are not hiding somewhere, as are many other companies.
Rauno, very good point. Really appreciate you bringing that up, and I think that's a good service definitely to investors and even potential interested investors. Thank you for that. Well, Rauno, Rob, thank you again for coming back. Rob, thank you for coming on for the first time and updating on the company. We're looking forward to seeing more progress. Best of luck, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. And thank you for letting us come and explain our story, because it's a very exciting story.
Thanks, Andrew. Much appreciated for your time, and much more to come, and look forward to coming on again and discussing the company further.